To demonstrate the capabilities of IP addresses, we'll use a few different commands to showcase how to view network interfaces, IP addresses, and subnets. We'll also check the default gateway and display the ARP table, which we were mentioning earlier. This demo will give you a good overview of the foundational networking concepts we've discussed so far. For all of these commands, we will use terminal. The Linux terminal is a command line interface that lets you interact directly with the operating system by typing commands. Unlike graphical user interface, where user clicks on icons and menus, the terminal requires text-based input to perform tasks. Through the terminal, users can navigate the file systems, install software, manage processes, configure network settings, automate tasks, and a lot more. To begin, we will use the IP command. The command IPA gives detailed information on the system's network interfaces and their configurations. This includes the IP address assigned to each interface, their states, and more. Let's start with the first interface. The LO interface, also known as the loopback interface, is a virtual network interface used for local communication within the machine itself, without needing external networks or connections. This is used for things like local software testing. Well, let's quickly go over the output. The number here is the index of the interface, which is a unique identifier. It simply goes by numbers. Then we have the name of the interface. Here we have LO, and here we have ETH0. Following, we have a few different flags. In this case, loopback shows that it's a loopback interface. Up means it's active, and lower up confirms that the interface is operational at physical layer. MTU is short for maximum transmission unit. The MTU of 65,536 defines the largest data packet size the interface can handle. Because this is a loopback interface and the packets are not going anywhere, this is a very large size. If you notice here, the size is completely different, but that is because this is an external interface. QDisks stands for queue discipline. No queue indicates no queuing is required here, as packets are sent immediately. Again, because it's a local interface. State unknown means it's a virtual interface with no direct physical state. Following, we have the IPv4 address. This particular address is pretty standard for the loopback IP in IPv4. The /8 indicates the subnet masks, given the large range, but all the addresses are limited to the local host. And following, we have similar with IPv6 notation. Both IP addresses are forever valid, meaning that they do not expire or require renewal. Following, we have another interface, and this is our actual network interface. ETH0 stands for Ethernet 0, and it's a commonly used Ethernet interface name. We have different flags here compared to loopback. We have broadcast and multicast, which show support for these transmission methods. And then we have up and lower up, just like we've had on the previous one. A few differences here. As you may notice, the queuing discipline is different. Here it's PFIFO_fast, which stands for first in, first out. And it's a simple queuing discipline that prioritizes traffic by order received. Following, we have our IP address that's assigned to our external communication, and we have /20 subnet mask, which defines a very large range. In this case, that would be from 20.48.0 to 20.63.255. And then following, we have the IPv6 address. The most important information here, I would say from pen testing perspective, would be the IP address and the subnet mask. These are important for multiple reasons. For example, for defining the scope of target network, identifying local versus external targets, and it also helps with network discovery and enumeration, as you will see in future lessons. Now let's use a different IP command to check for the default gateway. So that would be IP route show. And this command displays the path that the network traffic takes, including any default routes. The first line specifies the default route, or gateway of last resort, that data packets use if there is no more specific path in the routing table. Via IP address indicates the IP of the default gateway used for reaching external networks. And dev ETH0 designates the interface to use for this route. Because I'm using AWS Cloud environment for this demo, unfortunately we do not have access to our default route device, aka our router. In the cloud, all of that is set up for you automatically in the backend, so you actually don't have to worry about setting up the router. You do, however, still set up subnets and routing tables. And then the last line shows the subnet range covering IP range that I've mentioned earlier. Protokernel means this route was created by the system's kernel, and scope link tells us this is local network route. Lastly, the source with the IP address specifies the source IP for packets leaving via this route, which is the IP address given to our network interface. Now let's move on to the ARP table. We can view the ARP table with a simple command arp-a. The ARP, as a reminder, stands for Address Resolution Protocol, and the table shows us the device to IP address mappings for the network, which helps translate between layer 2 and layer 3 addresses. Here we only have one IP address with one MAC address, which is the addresses of our default gateway. This mapping is used for devices on the same network segment, enabling the system to send packets to the correct MAC address associated with the IP. This is it for this lesson, and in the next lesson we will discuss protocols and ports. Catch you there.